When looking at the Atlanta Hawks offense, it doesn't take long to appreciate the process. Digging through the advanced stats, you'd expect them to be at the tip top of the list in the passing and player movement numbers. And while they're 5th overall on offense on synergy, they only rank 11th in offensive rating. They do rank 5th in number of passes per game, but they are a very average 17th in distance traveled. So what exactly is it about this Hawks team that has them sitting atop the Eastern Conference for the first time since 1987? In 2 words, the jump shot. While the Hawks only have 2 players who shoot better than average from 3, they are ranked 1st overall in jump shots according to Synergy and a terrific 5th on threes, primarily due to the incredible stylings of Kyle Korver, who is flirting with a 50-50-95 season. But everyone on this team can shoot jump shots, making it very difficult for the defense to keep up once they get going. One of the reasons their distance traveled is so low is their ruthless efficiency on offense. They rely much more on passing the ball than cutting across the court. Hence, their assist opportunities per game rank 2nd, and they are tied for 4th in secondary assists per game as well. The Hawks' assist ratio is 19.5, which also leads the league and makes them a delight to watch when they uncork possessions like this. When you think of jump shooting, you most certainly think Kyle Korver, and this year is no exception. Of the 138 players who have used at least 300 possessions, Korver is the most efficient player in the NBA, and it isn't even close. His effective field goal percentage is over 8 points higher than the second guy on this list, which is simply unheard of. One of the keys to getting a good shooter open is to have him set screens, and Coach Budenholzer has mastered this. Watch how Korver sets 3 screens for teammates before turning around and getting a double down screen himself. I got a chance to ask Kyle Korver about setting screens and how that helps him to get open.
As a shooter, I mean, if I just kind of stand still, I'm pretty easy to guard, but I feel like the more I can move around, the harder I am to guard. And if the guy who's guarding me is worried about helping after I set a screen, that just gives me another opportunity to possibly get open. So luckily here in the system, Bud gives me a ton of freedom. I think sometimes I drive him crazy setting too many screens, but it just makes me feel like I'm more part of the game and I'm more dangerous. And a lot of times guys don't really want to leave me. So if I can set a good screen, if I'm not getting open, somebody else probably is.
So that wasn't a design play when it looks like DeMar Carroll's going to set a down screen for you, and then all of a sudden you kind of wrap around and screen for him. Was that sort of a freelancing that you were doing?
That's just a read, and me and DeMar are always talking during the game, and Jeff, we have a bunch of concepts that Bud doesn't want us to do the same thing over and over again. So sometimes he'll set for me, sometimes I'll call Curl and set for him. It just kind of depends on what we're reading.
Another key to making threes is to get the ball down low first, so the pass is coming from the direction of the basket. It's a much easier shot since you're already squared to the hoop on the catch. And the Hawks do this as well as anyone in the league. It is for this reason that their synergy numbers are so low for post-ups, primarily because they use that space to kick out for jump shots all over the floor. I had the opportunity to talk with Hawks coach Mike Budenholzer about his process of developing the offense, and here's what he said. When you're shooting your three-point shots, that the pass comes from the angle of the low post or from the basket, because it looks that way to me, where so many of your shots are coming inside out, which obviously makes an easier shot. Is that a focus for your team?
Yeah, I think hopefully we're getting shots a lot of different ways, and we're making it difficult on the defense to know where we're coming from, but I think using the post and the angles that it creates and the things it does to the defense and their positioning and how they play can create opportunities that hopefully we take advantage of.
We have been breaking down a lot of your offensive sets recently, and as a triangle offense coach, I'm noticing a lot of triangle influence. How conscious is that, and how was that on purpose?
Yeah, I think the triangle was a big influence on me. I think all the success that Coach Jackson had, and with the Bulls and with the Lakers, and that was when I was in a little bit of my young formative age, and we were trying to beat those teams and trying to figure out how to stop them. And I think there's a lot of good, solid, fundamental basketball principles that every coach, every offense could steal from.
For example, here's the triangle high post action to start, but then it blossoms into something much more exciting. A pin down and dribble pitch to Kyle Korver with a nice flow into a Millsap post up and score with a fantastic use of his left hand. This set, which goes from basic motion to a pinch post formation, the pin down for Korver out of the corner is right out of Tex Winter's book, but the wrinkle is the flare screen, which then opens up a drive for Schroeder. When we notice, particularly with pinch posts, what I love about what you do with it is instead of passing the ball to pinch post and cutting around, which I think you do a little bit of, you'll have that become a flare screen and off of the curl from the corner. I've never seen Tex Winter or ever anybody do that kind of an action. So did you just sort of evolve that on your own?
Yeah, that's where I think there are some things that are triangle and there's some other things that are, totally different. And, all the years in San Antonio and the way the offense evolved there and, observing and learning and being a part of that process and, adding some of our own stuff. So it's kind of a mix of different things. It's by no means just triangle.
While Paul Millsap's numbers aren't through the roof, he is really the matchup nightmare for the other team. He has the total package, whether it's shooting from the outside, driving into the lane, posting up, or feeding teammates. There are very few power forwards in the league with his total skill set. To break down what they're doing on offense, I brought in Ben Dowsett, one of our awesome writers from the website, to discuss a couple of different sets and why they're so fundamentally sound. So, Ben, thanks for coming on the show. I trust that you have some really fun magic to share with us from Budenholzer's offense. So, jump right in. Let us know, what are you seeing and what do you like so much about it?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. First of all, Coach, the Atlanta Hawks under Coach Mike Budenholzer run an absolutely lovely amount of variation in their offense. They'll start with a basic standard set, ones you see around the league, ones you see all the time, and the defenses are totally used to seeing. They'll run that a couple of times. For instance, we have a basic pick and roll between Jeff Teague and Paul Millsap. Those are two all-star level players, possibly the two best players on Atlanta's roster this season, and a set like that is dangerous enough on its own when run by itself up high and with shooters in the corners. Millsap has the ability to either pick and pop, or he can pick and roll all the way to the hoop. He's a talented passer, and of course we know that Teague is one of the best penetrators in the NBA, and if you give him too much space, he's going to get into the lane and he's going to hurt you. So they'll run that basic set. Defenses may think they have a handle on that, although again, it's pretty tough to stop with just those two guys. But then they'll add a little bit of variation into it, and in this variation we see Kyle Korver run over and actually set a separate pick on Millsap's man, in this case David West of the Indiana Pacers. He'll set that pick, and Millsap, before he even reaches Teague to set his screen, in a designed play will slip the screen, run towards the basket. He'll receive a pass from Teague, as Teague of course knew what was going on, and it sets the Hawks up with numerous options. We see DeMarre Carroll wide open on the weak side for a three. We see Korver after he sets his pick and confuses the defense with all of his gravity. We see him pop out for a wide, he's wide open at the top of the key for a three as well. And Millsap himself could probably even go for a layup, though it might be slightly contested in this situation. We see a defense that thinks they're getting a normal set, but one little tiny counter and all of a sudden it's a completely different thing than what they thought they were seeing, and they're yielding wide open options all over the court. In this case, Millsap kicked it out to Carroll. Carroll hits the wide open three.
Absolutely, and I've always said that if you want to get a good shot, it's usually preferable to get your three best players involved in some sort of action to force the defense to rotate and deal with. And certainly here, it's unbelievable you can get Kyle Korver that much space on a very simple action. The other thing we talk about is if you want your shooter to get open, have him set a screen first. And that seems to be what Budenholzer has mastered very quickly. And he's been able to get Kyle Korver to set those screens, which perhaps with other players might be a more difficult situation.
Yeah, and of course some of this does go back to his personnel. It's not Budenholzer alone. He's got a number of players, Korver at the top of the list, Millsap at the top of the list as well, who are just excellent, varied players. They don't mind at all taking a bit of a sacrifice, setting picks, putting a body into somebody, even if it doesn't end up in them getting the ball on that set at all. And in this case, we see that. Korver doesn't receive the ball in this set. That's totally fine. He's not about his stats. He knows he's going to get his shots when it happens organically. And Atlanta is chock full top to bottom of players like that. And you got to give credit as well to their front office for making that sort of situation happen. And then to Budenholzer for putting it all together the right way.
Absolutely, and if you have a few $100 million, then perhaps you could be the new owner of the Hawks and be part of that. For even more bonus footage on the Hawks offense, click here or in the description below. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, it's not a channel, it's a conversation. You in?